Alright guys, Snow White 2025 is here and it has some major autotune issues. Like major to the point of I want to have a serious talk about them because I haven't seen very many people talking about this specifically and I know I can't be the only one who's hearing it. So in this video we're gonna get into that, we're gonna break down the soullessness of this movie's music, go through a few of the songs that I heard major problems with, and talk about the direction Disney is headed with their live action remakes from here. So without further ado, here we go. Hear ye, before we begin, your queen would like to request that ye scroll down beneath this digital videographical content and use your clicky to bestow upon the kingdom your likes and subscribes. And furthermore, that ye address your comments to Her Majesty Queen Brynhilda III, shrewdest in the land, and keep your bashing and disparaging of the film to a maximum, please. Spoilers from henceforth. Thank you and good day. As you probably are well aware by now, there's been a very unfortunate trend ever since Beauty and the Beast, and probably before that, of Disney's live-action remakes just sucking the life and personality and soul out of their original songs by hiring people who cannot sing to play leading musical theater parts and just auto-tuning them into oblivion, essentially giving their most iconic musical theater numbers to computers. Why are they doing this, you may ask? Well, the same reason they do anything. Honestly, it's for box office numbers. Yep, you guessed it, the mouse needs his moolah, come on, cough it up. They want to hire big names so people will come see things just for the actors, I guess. And in the process, what they sacrifice is the artistic integrity of their animated musical IPs, which I'm not upset about that personally. I mean, it's not like I built a YouTube channel specifically around bashing on the bastardization of Disney musicals. Snow White 2025 was, of course, no exception with the casting of Gal Gadot as the evil queen. There are points in her songs where it's quite obvious that she was heavily auto-tuned, and I'm not the first to say it doesn't sound good. Age me on this, mommy dust. But what really concerned me was the fact that even the songs that shouldn't have required auto-tune, aside from maybe minor pitch corrections here and there, the singers sounded overly processed and quite frankly devoid of personality. Now of course this doesn't apply to every line in every verse in every song, but it's there in some of the most important places and people have been noticing it. Rachel Zegler was, I think, the only singer in this movie that I never really noticed it with. She sounded pretty natural the whole way through. And to be clear, I'm not trying to accuse anyone or say that Disney actually definitively used auto-tune in all of these songs. Let me be the first to say I'm not an expert at detecting autotune, so I genuinely don't know if autotune was actually used in the songs I'm about to talk about, so there's no accusations being thrown here at all. But due to the issues I'm about to get into, to be honest, I hope they did use autotune. Why, you ask? Because if they didn't, then the only other explanation is that Disney intentionally and purposefully modeled the style of their music around clean, mechanical, boring, and uninspiring robots. But before we get into that, I want to just establish what it is that bothers me so much about autotune when we know it's being used. Aside from just how insulting it is on a base level to not cast professional musical theater singers to sing these iconic songs, like, guys, it's not even just to give them jobs. Like, I love them having jobs, but it's a treat for all of us when we get to hear that. Aside from that, autotune just straight up sounds nasty because what it does when it comes down to it is prioritize correct pitch over everything else. Emotional expression, characterization through your voice, characterization through artistic choices, dynamic changes, different qualities of your voice, like breathy or mellow versus bright. All of that nuance is lost when you give the part over to a computer. There might be parts that remain recognizable as the voice of the actor in question, but overall the impression the song gives is not emotionally impactful because it loses the human touch of performance in those places where the autotune takes over. For me, what it does just overall is pull me out of the story and the character and remind me I'm in the age of computerization of practically everything at this point. And frankly, when I'm watching a fantastical fairy tale like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the last thing I want to be thinking about is the inevitability of an AI apocalypse. And I know my taste in music isn't necessarily everyone's. I've been known to enjoy singers whose voices sound pretty unconventional compared to the mostly on-pitch, pretty sound that is common in musical theater. But even the best professional Broadway singers are not always perfectly on-pitch. Their voices waver, they have wild vibrato at times, sometimes they choose to go a little flat or sharp to show certain emotions. But even when they're not doing that, their pitches are often ever so slightly off from the intended note, just enough so that to most people it's imperceptible. But when you listen to a computerized auto-tuned voice that's exactly on pitch side by side with a natural professional singer, the difference becomes very clear. To this poor provincial town, Good morning. And we know when we hear that that's not a person singing, and even though it's technically more correct pitch-wise, it actually sounds worse. So some of the main hallmarks of the autotune style are an emphasis on the perfect note and a lack of of vibrato and other emotional expression. And keep that in mind because we're going to be hearing that in places in this movie where it definitely didn't need to be. There are two songs that I particularly wanted to look at. I think I've already made it pretty obvious that Gal Gadot's villain songs were not exactly natural human performances, so for this video we're not gonna focus on those. Instead, I want to talk about songs sung by actual singers who probably didn't really need huge amounts of autotune, but who nevertheless sound like they are being autotuned. And once you hear it, it's really hard to ignore. These songs are the new version of Heigh-Ho and the Prince character's new original song, Princess Problems. So let's get into that now. We'll start with Princess Problems, since that one's a little bit more obvious. A lot of people have been humorously joking about how Andrew Burnap's voice in this sounds like Kermit the Frog, and yeah. But even Kermit the Frog is not always perfectly on pitch. And I want to be so clear when I say that's a good thing. Like, Princess Problems sounds too perfect.
Is this the sweet sound that calls the young sailors?
On the rise with vultures circling the sky and prospects, well, they're rather grim.
And again, even if this song doesn't have any autotune in it, it is definitely dealing with autotune syndrome at least. There's something about Burnap's pitches that just sounds a little too precise, and he has absolutely no vibrato for most of this song. And no, this song did not need to be autotuned. Burnap has been in Broadway productions. You can find recordings of him that don't sound so unnatural. He has a good voice. And this song is definitely not as egregious as the Evil Queen's, and it actually has a lot of vocal scoops going on, but it does carry those hallmarks of what autotune sounds like. And when I turn it on, all I can think of somehow is that I'm listening to something that's not quite human. So why they felt the need to autotune him, or the alternative, to direct him to sing as if he were being autotuned, is beyond me. Other than maybe the only thing I can think of is they wanted to stylistically cohere with Gal Gadot's incredibly autotuned numbers, but that doesn't make any sense because, as I say, Rachel Zegler sounds perfectly natural throughout the whole thing. And in all seriousness, if we're gonna be totally honest here, the stylistic consistency throughout this movie is non-existent. It keeps only 2 songs from the original movie, or 2.5, I guess. But those songs still carry a lot of the musical style of the time they were written in and the movie they were written for. I mean, there's yodeling in one of them, like, come on. Whereas the new songs they've added, well, let's just say it's not exactly hard to tell that they were written by the same people who did The Greatest Showman. And trying to mesh those two styles together into one movie, it just doesn't work for me, guys. Sorry. So if this was an effort to be stylistically consistent, they already miserably failed on that front, I'm afraid. And my question is just why? Why drain the personality out of your perfectly good singer? Why is Jonathan's character this flat, inexpressive, devoid of dynamics voice? Why do they think that exact computerized tones sound better than the natural music Burnap is completely capable of creating? This can't be what audiences are looking for nowadays. Is there anybody in the comments who doesn't cringe when they hear this song, and can you enlighten me as to what the appeal is, because I'm lost. I hope that whatever this was just a fluke, but unfortunately we've seen that Disney is all too willing to use autotune repeatedly in their live action remakes, so if they ended up getting so carried away with it that it actually just became the new sound of Disney, I would honestly not be surprised. I've heard some people saying that one reason Disney has sucked all the personality out of their recent songs is because they're just trying to lean away from the musical theater genre and vibe in order to make something more poppy and potentially top the charts with something. But if that's the case, Disney, you're wrong again. Like, your highest chart topper in recent years was We Don't Talk About Bruno, which, yeah, was written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it's way more musical theater than any of this. It's got a whole cast of characters all singing completely different parts from each other. Like, it's not your formulaic pop ballad that's overly repetitive in order to get people to sing along. And the best part is, it doesn't sound processed or auto-tuned. Every singer in Encanto sounds expressive and amazing and human. On top of the obvious desire for box office brownie points and for a generic chart-topping pop song, one other explanation for this might be the increasing divide between Disney's musicians and the rest of their entire studio. You guys may have seen this video from my good friend Kalaxon, where she talks about how the quality of Disney's musicals started to decline with the production of Tangled. Go watch that video. Seriously, so good, and it explains so much, way better than I could have. Super well researched also, but I digress. As you may know, during the Disney Renaissance, one big reason the animated musicals were so brilliant was because of Howard Ashman's directing style and the fact that he kind of had his influence over the entire process of producing the movie. He, of course, wrote the lyrics for many of these movies, but he would also personally direct the performers as they recorded their songs and really work with them on every little detail of their performance to make sure it was the best it could possibly be. And that level of dedication to the music is something it feels like Disney can only dream of right now. Kalaxon talks about how the production of Tangled was the first time Disney started to lose the really tight cooperation between the writers of the actual story and the songwriters in their movies. And since then, it's been really difficult for Disney songwriters to write effective numbers because they're basically just told, okay, here's a scene that needs a song, and they can't write any character development or plot points into their songs because the screenwriters already wrote all that into the script and they can't change it. And they also have to defer to whatever the art team wants the visuals to look like instead of, you know, the other way around. So even from the beginning of the process, there's a lack of emotional connection between the songs and the story, so the lyrics can't even be as emotional as possible. No wonder nobody's bothering to direct the performer on how to give the most emotional performance possible. So it seems likely that that lack of connection from screenwriter to songwriter to director to performer is partly to blame for this robotic mess. And honestly, all we can do at this point is hope and pray and vote with our dollar, I guess, because it doesn't seem like anything about their current musical making process is changing anytime soon. At least the animated musicals seem to have less of a problem with Autotune, but as we all know, they are still failing, just in different ways. Anyway, moving on to our second example. Heigh-Ho is probably one of the most iconic songs in Disney history. Like, re-listening through the original Snow White soundtrack for this video, I got so many flashbacks to being a kid at Disneyland. Like, these songs, I didn't even know what they were called, half of them, and they were so nostalgic. Which is part of the reason a new rendition of this song is probably gonna sound wrong no matter what you do, but seriously, just listen to this intro.
Heigh-Ho!
We're not even a full second into the track, and my ears are already bleeding. Where's the mellow baritone with the vibrato and the breathy H and the natural register switch between the octaves? Why does it sound like I'm listening to Snow White and the 7 magical AIs? I didn't hate all of the changes they made to this song, though the lyrics they added are pretty questionable, and I might talk about that in another video. But this part bothers me, especially because I think it's supposed to be Doc singing this, and there are other places in the song where he sings solo parts, and it sounds nothing like this. The actor uses a completely different voice.
Why don't you shut it, Grump? Heigh-Ho!
I just don't understand what about Heigh-Ho was giving bright tenor, perfectly pitched, belting theater kid vibes to them. It's genuinely so confusing. And that style can be used appropriately. It's just not this song at all. This song is sung by a group of old white-bearded magical dwarves in a dark mine. Like, I'm sure it wasn't hard for the original songwriters to make the stylistic choices they did. The singers used very tall, resonant vowels to mimic the echoey reverb in a cave and to give it a sort of supernatural, mysterious sound. And that's a real tone shift next to the just speaking vowels used all the way through this new rendition, and I'm not sure it works.
1,000 rubies, sometimes more. 1,000 rubies, sometimes more.
And if this was trying to be stylistically consistent with Princess Problems and Gadot's travesties, once again, not working, because this is Heigh-Ho, so it's not even stylistically consistent with itself. The songs from the original movie take a lot of inspiration from the setting of the story in 16th century Germany, and that includes Heigh-Ho. I mean, the title of the song is literally an archaic phrase that was first used in the 1500s and has gotten a lot less common in modern times, even by the time the original movie was made, which might be part of the reason why this ultra-modern, auto-tuned style of singing just sounds so wrong with it. If they wanted to include those songs from the original movie and have stylistic consistency, somebody somewhere along the line probably should have decided they were going to make the bare minimum effort to write new songs that actually reflected the culture of the original tale, instead of just using completely generic pop musical theater song structures and instruments. Oh, and another thing that bothers me about this Heigh-Ho.
Heigh-Ho!
It sounds completely different from all of the other dwarf voices. Like, they each have their distinctive voices, you know? They go gravelly, they go wistful, they go nasally.
You know what I'm allergic to? It's better. When the sparkle starts to shine.
The voices characterize them, and they're part of the personality and, you know, the comedy of the movie, and this just sounds like you brought in a Broadway leading man and just asked him to sing it like he was auditioning for a generic tenor part. It's really confusing. It doesn't set up the dwarves' characters, it's weird to listen to, and on top of that, it didn't need to be there. As far as I've been able to tell, the voice actors they got for the dwarves are singers, so they should have been able to deliver this line with no auto-tune, or with more personality, at least. And I'm also sure they could have gotten Broadway caliber voice actors who actually had dwarfism to play these roles, you know, but I'm not salty about that, it's fine. There's just so much wrong with how they chose to present this song, and as I said, I'm thinking about getting into some further problems with this rendition in another video here soon, because there are some deeper problems that we're dealing with here. So do consider subscribing if that sounds interesting to you. Oh yeah, and also, the whistling in Whistle While You Work. It also sounds like a robot. Seriously, what have we come to, Disney? It sounds so bad. So I did do a tiny bit of digging around to see if I could pin down this weird robotic style on any of the people who worked on this movie, and the only song I can think to compare it to would be A Million Dreams from The Greatest Showman, also written by Benj, Pasek, and Justin Paul. It's very precise tone-wise, and there's minimal vibrato, and personally, I always did wish there was a bit more personality and emotion in the vocals, because it does sound a bit static and poppy the whole way through. I mean, the performer was 13, so I don't expect him to be I don't know, Idina Menzel or anything, but at least it sounds a bit more natural than Princess Problems, so I really don't know what went on there. If the other things Pasek and Paul have written sound a bit poppy, then Snow White 2025 has taken that and catapulted it through the roof. And I don't know, I feel like as an audience member, I'm just really hungering for raw emotional performances where we can really feel the personality of the character coming through. And Snow White was flat, insipid, stylistically confusing, and borderline unlistenable for it. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts, so please tell me everything you guys thought as well. Did you like the performances? Where do you think this movie falls on the scale of Disney live action remakes? Is it bad or is it abysmally bad?
Massive thank you to my patron Gregory Bronstein. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you.
If you want to support me as well, you can hit the join button or check me out on Patreon. All links in the description.
And if you are interested in getting feedback on your writing or songwriting from me, I'm thinking about making that available to everyone on my Discord, just on a first come, first serve basis. So link to join that in the description also.
I would love to meet you. I love talking to other writers and songwriters. I can't promise I'll get to all of you, but I will give it my best shot. So yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching me rant. Now go outside.
Also, did anybody miss the Dwarves' washing song in this movie? Like, that track genuinely slaps. Am I the only one? Okay.